The story opens, revealing a very dense forest. A man was running frantically, hoping to discover a path to escape this dense jungle. However, this forest was so incredibly dense that no exit route was discernible. The man kept moving forward, constantly looking at the sun. But now, the sun was also slowly beginning to set. Yet, this man did not give up running. As he kept running, he eventually reached a point where a sign clearly stated "Point of No Return," indicating that no one could ever turn back from there. The number 108B was also prominently displayed on this very board. Seeing this, he became even more deeply disturbed and worried. Slowly but surely, the darkness began to intensify, and a strange, eerie fear spread throughout the entire forest. Then, all of a sudden, every single bird abruptly flew away from that spot. Even after this man had journeyed for many miles, he didn't spot a single wild animal throughout the entire forest. What could it be that even the wild creatures were so terrified of? Driven by fear, the men began to run even more swiftly. But after many hours of travel, the man suddenly stopped at a spot, and disappointment spread across his face, because before him was that same signboard, number 108, which read, "Point of No Return." Alamin finally understood that no matter how much he ran, he couldn't get out of this jungle, so he then began to search for a place to conceal himself. But there, he couldn't find any safe spot to hide. This is why he now climbs up the tree. But just then, the tree branch broke and the man fell from a considerable height down to the ground. After falling from the tree, he was very badly injured. He had sustained some very deep injuries. Before he could even pass out, the ground suddenly began to shake and strange guttural growls started to echo. Upon hearing those sounds, the man's breath completely caught in his throat. Just then, someone abruptly pulled him away. Who or what was pulling him was not shown, however. We could clearly hear the man's agonizing screams. 6 days after this incident, we are introduced to Mina, a young woman living in the city who works diligently at a local bird shop. Suddenly, her boss arrives and gives Mina an urgent order to deliver a rare golden parrot to a distant zoo, quite far from the city. Mina, understanding the importance of her boss's instructions, promptly agrees and prepares to deliver the precious parrot. She gets into her car, carefully sets the zoo's exact location on her mobile, and then confidently begins her journey. After leaving the city, she sees missing photos of many people on a board. This meant many people had disappeared there, but Mina doesn't pay much attention to them and keeps moving forward. As Mina drove on, she decided to take a shortcut through the jungle path, hoping to quickly deliver this parrot to the zoo. And soon, she found herself deep in the heart of the forest. This was the very same place where we had previously witnessed a man vanish without a trace. Mina was now completely and utterly stuck. She checked the map on her mobile phone, but there were absolutely no signals, and her car's radio wasn't working either. Mina started to leave, but now she couldn't find her way out. A short while later, Mina's car also broke down. Mina steps out of her car and spots the familiar Point of No Return sign right in front of her. Mina doesn't understand what's happening, so she takes the parrot's cage in her hand and walks ahead, searching for help nearby. But there was no trace of any help anywhere around. After that, she returned to the very spot where she had parked her vehicle, but to her surprise, her car had completely disappeared from there. Seeing this, she became extremely distressed. She thought perhaps she hadn't come to the exact spot where her car was parked, but instead she had arrived at a completely different location, and her car was standing somewhere else entirely, because every single point in this vast forest looked exactly the same. And now the darkness was also growing deeper and deeper. Suddenly, just as it had happened before, all the birds flew away from these trees. Mina now began to feel quite scared, as the ground was also shaking quite violently. Mina then sensed the presence of someone very close by. Just then, Mina suddenly saw a shadow in the far distance. Mina ran quickly after it, but she didn't find anyone there. Just then, Mina suddenly saw an old woman who was running. Mina also started running, trying to catch her. She was asking her for help, but the woman wouldn't stop. She just kept running very fast. Once again, Mina finds herself chasing this old woman. Suddenly, the old woman vanished from sight once more. As Mina continued to search for her, moving deeper, she spotted a large room in the distant jungle. The old woman opened the room's door and urgently told Mina, "If you want to stay alive, come inside quickly." Hearing this, Mina, without a second thought, immediately ran towards that room. The moment Mina stepped inside, he immediately locked the gate. Mina observes that it's a very strange room containing a massive mirror. Along with that old woman, there were also two other individuals present. Mina nervously asks them, "What exactly is this place?" The old woman replied, "We call this place the Cove. My name is Madeleine, this girl is Kiara, and this boy's name is Daniel." The old woman tells Mina that this is not the time for conversation. "You quickly come and stand with us in front of the mirror, because someone is coming to see us." Mina asks, "Who is it that's coming to see us, after all?" The old woman doesn't give her any answer. All of a sudden, strange sounds begin to come from outside. Mina, trembling with fear, asks what kind of sound that is. Kiara then tells Mina that these are what we call watchers. They're watching us from the other side of the glass, but we can't see them. Every night, after sunset, they come here and keep watching us until the morning sun rises. Just then, a noise started coming from the other side of the glass. Mina asks, "What kind of noise is this?" The old woman explained that the watchers are happy you've arrived. They're clapping, happy to see you. Mina was completely confused. She wanted to get out of there as quickly as possible. The watchers Madeline had been talking about, neither Mina nor anyone else had seen them so far. The night passes by. When morning arrived, they managed to get out of that place. Madeline explains that those watchers only come out during the night. During the day, we are free to roam around in the jungle. Mina kept thinking all night when morning would break, so she could quickly leave this jungle. So she immediately starts looking for a way out of the jungle. Then Madeline prevents everyone else from stopping her, as if she knows Mina can't escape this jungle and will surely come back. As Mina leaves, Madeline tells her that this decision of hers is not good. There is absolutely no way to get out of this dense jungle. We must return to this house before the darkness of night falls. If you are late, you will most certainly lose your precious life. Mina, however, doesn't listen to a single word and with her parrot quickly pushes forward. After moving just a little further, she then sees that point of no return sign. Seeing him, she did get scared, but she didn't lose her courage. And looking at the sun, she kept moving in the sun's direction. But she couldn't manage to get out of the jungle. Further ahead, the path simply ended. Mina saw that she was standing at the very top of a mountain, from where, as far as her eyes could see, there was nothing but dense jungle. That's why, feeling utterly disheartened, she sat down. Just then, someone unexpectedly placed a hand on her shoulder. She was startled, and when she turned to look, it was the old woman, Madeline. "Here," Madeline encourages her, telling her, "You're not the only one who tried to get out of here and failed. We too, like you, tried and failed, and now we're stuck here. There's simply no way to get out of this place. Come on, let me show you something." Madeline then leads Mina towards the forest. Madeline tells Mina, "This jungle is a hunter, and we are all its prey. If you want to survive, then stay with us." Madeline shows her numerous point of no return signboards, which were arranged in a circle all around the jungle, and their room was right in the middle. Madeline says that these are half a day's journey from our house. If we go any further, it will be difficult to return. So if you ever come across these, you must never ignore them. Mina asks, "Who could have possibly created all of these?" She replies, "A professor made it, but no one has ever seen him." And then night falls. These people would go back inside that house. Every night, watchers would come to see them. Today, a girl named Kiara performs a dance for them, stating they enjoy all of this. It wasn't as if these four had to remain standing before the watchers every single night. They were free to do absolutely anything they wished. The only thing was, they couldn't turn their backs towards them. When they did this, those people would become extremely angry. At night, their only concern was the watchers, but even during the day, they had to confront many difficulties. These individuals would hunt something from the forest each day to sustain themselves, which allowed them to get by. The following day, Kiara and Mina both venture into the jungle to hunt. Mina asks Kiara, "What is it that these watchers ultimately want?" Kiara replies, "I don't really know anything specific either, but Madeline says that these watchers, they just watch us. They observe us. But if we were to see the watchers, we would surely go insane, because the watchers look incredibly fierce." Kiara now points out a pit to him and explains that many such pits are present throughout this jungle. During the daytime, all of the watchers remain inside those pits, and then at night, they emerge from them. They cannot come out during the day because the sunlight burns their skin. Kiara tells Mina that she and her husband came to this jungle 5 months ago, and they've been stranded here ever since. However, 6 days ago, my husband ventured into the jungle to find a way out. I'm hopeful that he will surely return and lead all of us to safety from this place. It's at this point we learn that Kiara's husband, as it turns out, was the very same individual whom we had observed at the very start of the movie and who was forcibly taken away from this location and has now been murdered. Talking like this, the two of them return to the room. Here, Madeleine explains 3 crucial rules to Mina for her survival. The very first rule is that she must not open the house door at night. Secondly, at night she must never turn her back towards any mirror. And thirdly, during the daytime, she should not go near those pits, and she must remain in the light as much as she possibly can. As long as you keep following these rules, you will remain alive. However, Mina had absolutely no faith in Madeleine's words. That night, Mina was determined to learn more about these watchers. Therefore, she pressed her ear against the mirror, trying to hear sounds. When she hears absolutely nothing, Mina starts to perceive Madeleine's tales of the Watchers as completely fake. So, breaking the rules, she sleeps with her back turned towards the mirror, and upon doing so, these Watchers become enraged. Those people start hitting that glass very loudly. The noise wakes Madeleine up as well, and she quickly tells Mina to stand facing the glass, and only then does the Watchers' anger finally calm down. This means that when people turn their backs on the Watchers, they perceive it as a direct personal insult. This night too eventually passes, and the very next morning, Mina sets out on a hunt with Daniel. She then asks Daniel, "Have you in all your life ever actually seen a Watcher?" Yeti, par. Daniel replied that he'd never seen the Watchers either, and anyone who sees them doesn't survive. Mina then explained to Daniel that she believes these are all stories Madeleine made up, trying to trap them. "We absolutely must go and check those pits. Perhaps we can find a way out of here." Daniel, too, had become utterly frustrated by his prolonged stay here, and he was determined to discover a route to escape this treacherous jungle. Consequently, he accepted Mina's proposal, and together they arrived at the edge of the pit. Then, Mina secured herself with a sturdy rope and began her descent into the depths of the pit. Daniel held firmly onto the other end of the rope, ensuring that if anything were to happen to Mina, he could swiftly pull her back out. Mina descends into the deep pit, where she discovers a vast amount of human belongings. Mina then proceeds to collect all of these items. All these possessions had once belonged to people who had tragically fallen victim to the Watchers in the jungle. Daniel, with the aid of a sturdy rope, manages to pull out the camera, a bicycle, and all other essential supplies. Mina now waits below, expecting Daniel to throw the rope down so she can climb up, and before Mina could even manage to get out of that pit, she hears the commotion of someone coming inside. Mina quickly begins to call out to Daniel to throw the rope down, but at that very moment, a Watcher's hand began to reach out to seize Mina. However, Mina was standing directly in the sunlight, so when the sun's rays touched the Watcher's hand, it began to burn. At that instant, Daniel tossed the rope down to Mina, and she swiftly pulled herself out. Mina was absolutely petrified. These people took all the items and brought them to their safe house, where Madeleine then asked her, "Where did you get all of these things?" These people lie, saying they found these items in this jungle. Madeleine had spent a very long time living in this jungle. She knew that these items must have been found not in the jungle, but in a pit. She asks Mina, "Tell me, what did you see inside the pit?" Might be BDDBI. But Mina doesn't tell him anything. They were extremely happy that they would finally see the Watchers tonight. This was because Mina had discovered a camera inside the pit. Daniel somehow managed to connect that camera to the TV so they could also view the Watchers on screen. Madeleine repeatedly explained to them that they were doing this all wrong, but these two didn't listen to a single word she said. Tonight, these individuals were patiently waiting for the Watchers, hoping to finally catch a glimpse of them. However, even though it was quite late into the night, no Watcher had come to see them. And now, just a little while later, something truly strange was about to unfold for them. These people were deeply engrossed in their conversation when suddenly the door was sharply knocked. Someone had indeed knocked on the door. They quickly looked towards the television screen, and there, to their astonishment, human legs were clearly visible. Whoever was standing outside was speaking in Kiara's husband's distinct voice, urgently demanding that the door be opened. Kiara immediately thought that her husband must have certainly discovered a way to escape from this confined space. She quickly got up and moved to open the door, but Madeleine stepped in, firmly preventing her from doing so. She says, "I know your husband is not outside," because Madeleine knew that in the absolute darkness of this night, no one could possibly make it to this room. But Kiara doesn't believe Madeleine's words, and she tries to open the door. After that, Madeleine tells Kiara that he is trying to trap you. You must put him to the test. Ask him something that only you or your husband would know. Kiara questions the person standing outside about a book he absolutely should have known. But when the individual outside offers no response, they realize it must be a Watcher. When they refuse to open the door, the Watcher proceeds to destroy the camera mounted outside. And here we learn a crucial fact. Watchers can also transform themselves into human form. The onlookers grew extremely angry and frustrated by his behavior. They started to violently pound on the glass, causing a very significant crack to appear. But Madeleine, showing great wisdom, quickly made everyone stand in a line facing the glass. This somewhat cools the Watchers' anger, and they depart from there. Now Mina tells Madeleine that they had stolen all this stuff from the pit. Hearing this, Madeleine gets very angry that they had broken the second rule too. The next morning, Madeleine picks up all the items brought from that pit and throws them back into the same pit. This helps to calm down the anger of those watchers a little. However, these individuals then started witnessing extremely strange occurrences within the forest, and its most significant impact was felt by Daniel. Daniel suddenly began to get very angry over every little thing. On the other hand, Kiara, who had previously held onto the hope that her husband was still alive and would eventually come here to rescue her, but now she had come to the realization that her husband would never return. Because of this, she was completely broken inside, and she decides to jump into these pits of the Watchers to end her life. Because now she has no reason left to live. She is just about to do so when Mina arrives and saves her. Meanwhile, we see Daniel looking strangely at Madeleine, and in a fit of rage, he ties Madeleine to a tree. Daniel declared, I will no longer follow any rules set by this old woman. From now on, only my commands will be obeyed here. It was getting late, so Daniel rushed towards the room and Kiara ran right after him. But Mina came to Madeleine and began untying her ropes. Meanwhile, Daniel took Kiara, locked the room door from inside, leaving Mina and Madeleine outside. Mina and Madeleine kept pleading with Daniel to open the door, begging him, "Please open the door!" However, Daniel did not open the door. Outside, darkness had now enveloped everything, and it was time for the Watchers to appear. Therefore, they were compelled to hide beneath a thick tree to protect their lives. A short while later, they began to hear the ominous growls of the Watchers. At this moment, along with Mina and Madeleine, we are also shown a glimpse of these Watchers. These beings were tall, slender, and extremely dangerous. All of them emerged from their respective holes, making their way to that safe room to observe the humans. And upon realizing that Mina and Madeleine are no longer present there, they begin to search the jungle, intending to find and devour them. Once these Watchers have moved a considerable distance away, seizing the opportune moment, the two of them return to the safe room once more and tearfully plead with Daniel to unlock and open the door. This time, Daniel's heart is filled with compassion and he decides to open the door for them. After they go inside, Madeleine first expresses her anger towards Daniel, and then she makes everyone stand in front of a mirror to reveal some truths about the Watchers. Madeleine stated that we have already broken many rules, so she doesn't believe the Watchers will forgive us this time. I want to share some important truths about the Watchers with all of you. Actually, when I first came here, I saw something that completely blew my mind. I saw my very own duplicate. In reality, he was a Watcher who was trying to take my form, however, his eyes and hair were not completely perfect. Mina asked what these Watchers actually were. Madeleine replied that these creatures are old fairies, who, in a bygone era, lived together with humans. Fairies were enchanting, winged, magical beings. But as time progressed, humans grew fearful of the fairies' immense powers. Therefore, humans decided they needed to eradicate these fairies. The humans were far greater in number, so the fairies were unable to fight against them. The humans captured these fairies in a very large pit deep within the jungle, and with a curse, they sealed them inside this pit forever. After that, the fairies remained imprisoned in that pit for many hundreds of years. But then, as time passed, they dug underground, creating paths to escape. Today, those very fairies, now as Watchers, emerge from their pits and appear before us. However, after living underground for several hundred years, they lost their wings and all their magical powers. And also, sunlight began to cause them pain. But even now, they still possess the power to change their form. Daniel then asked Madeleine what these Watchers want from us and why they watch us every night. To which Madeleine explained that these Watchers want to leave the jungle once again and live among humans. However, in their genuine form, they are unable to reside amongst humans. This is precisely why they have kept us confined here, so that by observing our actions, they can assume our appearance, and by acquiring contemporary customs and manners from us, they can then exist within human society. Madeleine was just recounting all these events when suddenly all the Watchers came back. And as soon as the Watchers realized that Madeleine and Mina had returned to their room, they all erupted in fury and began attempting to break down the door. These four quickly dragged a table and positioned it right in front of the door so that the Watchers would not be able to force it open. But the Watchers' power was far too great, and these four had already realized that the Watchers would soon be coming inside and they could see death staring them right in the face. Just then, they noticed the carpet had been flipped over, likely from dragging the table to the door. When they pulled the carpet aside, they discovered a large iron gate underneath. They quickly opened the gate and realized that a very large bunker lay hidden below. These people quickly entered the bunker and closed the iron gate from above. They were quite disturbed that this bunker had been here all along and they hadn't even known about it. This bunker had many facilities hidden beneath. There was food for thousands of days, a computer, and many other essential essential supplies stored. Mina wanted to know who had actually built this place, so she turns on that computer. The computer contained a lot of safe data, and upon opening it, they realized Professor Martin had created all these places. Actually, the professor knew about these creatures. He wanted to research these watchers. That's why he had built this bunker. He would lure other people with money, bringing them here for work. And at night, he'd leave the laborers in the room above, then come down here to hide himself. And those watchers would then proceed to devour those unfortunate people. In the next video, Dr. Martin explains that during his research, he discovered a truly unique fairy that was capable of emerging from those pits even in broad daylight. The doctor reveals that this watcher had assumed the absolutely perfect form of a little girl, one whom no one could possibly identify. She was exceptionally kind. She did not kill Dr. Martin. Dr. Martin brought it over here. Just then, the professor turned the camera to the other side. They then saw that the professor had captured and caged that creature, which had appeared in the form of a small girl. No one knew what experiment the doctor was going to perform on him. The computer had many videos, and each video explained something or other. Mina just wanted to know what happened in the end. That's why she plays the very last video, in which she discovers that the professor is about to take his own life and the fairies. Before he dies, he tells the people who are trapped in this forest how to find a way out. He says that if they run in the direction where the birds fly away in the evening, they can escape this forest. He had stated in this recorded message that if anyone managed to escape this jungle, they should go to the university and destroy all his research. I made a huge mistake by coming here. After that, the professor went upstairs and then 2 gunshots were heard. They understood that the professor first killed that fairy and then shot himself. Well, tonight these 4 were very happy because they had finally found a way to escape this jungle. The next morning, everyone emerges from the bunker, only to discover that their safe house has been completely destroyed by those watchers. And on this very day, they absolutely must escape from this jungle, otherwise they will surely be killed, as by nightfall they would have no room left to hide in. They now begin to move along the path to exit this jungle. The birds the professor was talking about were supposed to fly in the evening, but they had to get out of the jungle before it got dark. So Mina frees the parrot she had with her. They start walking in the same direction that it flies. While walking, they found a grave on the way. Madeleine, looking at that grave, explains that there was a time when these people lived alongside humans. But humans treated them very badly, betrayed them, and trapped them here in the jungles, then abandoned them. After traveling for several long hours, they finally reached a river. There, they discovered the professor's boat, which made them incredibly happy. But their happiness was now a ghost for only a short while, because it was already dark and it was time for the watchers to arrive. Just before these people could get into Dr. Martin's boat and sail away from here, they suddenly heard a voice from behind. When they turned around to look, it was Kiara's husband, desperately screaming for help. He was in a very badly injured condition. Everyone else had already boarded the boat, so Daniel went alone to help him. Daniel started pulling Kiara's husband closer towards the boat. But then, from the boat, they witnessed that the person Daniel had gone to rescue was not a human being, but a terrifying watcher, who then assumed Daniel's exact form right before their very eyes. They were completely helpless, unable to do anything. And then, that monstrous watcher brutally killed Daniel. They were aware that the watchers could not cross this river, and eventually, these individuals themselves managed to cross the river and arrive at the city. The true twist in the narrative then unfolded. After their arrival in the city, these 3 individuals proceeded along different paths. Then, just a few days later, Mina quickly approached Dr. According to Martin, she came to his university to destroy all his data. But before she could delete his research data, she found a tape recorder there. And from that tape recorder, Mina discovered a new secret. Thousands of years ago, when humans and fairies lived together, they used to marry each other. Children born from the union of humans and fairies possessed the qualities of both. They were known as halflings. Those halflings had a peculiar characteristic. They were so skilled at changing their appearance that they could even take on the form of a deceased individual. The professor was of the opinion that when humans had imprisoned the fairies deep within the forest pits, the halflings began to secretly reside among people by disguising themselves, and they continue to exist among humans in various forms even to this very day. When Mina entered the professor's office and started searching around, she came across some photographs that completely blew her mind. She realized the woman standing with the professor in the picture was none other than Madeleine, who was, in fact, the professor's wife. She became utterly confused, wondering why Madeleine had kept this crucial information from her. To share this great confusion, she goes to Chiara and tells her that the Madeleine they met in the forest was actually Professor Martin's wife. But she didn't tell them this truth because she herself wasn't human, but a shape-shifting fairy. When I did some research, I found out that many years ago, Professor Martin's wife, Madeleine, had died due to cancer. Chiara hears this and asks, then who was that Madeleine who was with us all this time? And Mina replies, I understand everything now. The professor was deeply saddened by his wife's death and desperately wanted to bring her back. And when the professor came to know about these shape-shifting fairies, he captured that shape-shifting fairy who had come to him in the perfect form of a little girl. The professor, showing a photo of his wife, transformed that fairy to look exactly like his wife Madeleine. Because that fairy was different from all the other fairies, she could have come out even during the day. Mina said, I have called Madeleine here. We somehow have to send her back to the jungle. Just then, a car pulled up and stopped there. When the person who stepped out of the car, Mina's breath caught in her throat. It was Chiara. So, the one who was with Mina all this time was Madeleine. She had assumed Chiara's identity. The moment Chiara stepped inside the house, that's when Madeleine, transforming into Chiara's husband, knocked her out. Mina asked Madeleine, what is it you actually want? To which Madeleine angrily said, I am the most unique creature among fairies. All my companions used to tease me since childhood. They wouldn't let me stay with them because I was different. I was left alone in that forest, and I wanted to leave that forest and live with people outside. Then one day, the professor came into that forest. He imprisoned me in a cage. He told me that if I took the form of his wife, he would take me out of the jungle. I agreed to his terms. The professor taught me everything about Madeleine, and later that deceitful professor tried to kill me. But before he could kill me, I killed him instead. You humans were never trustworthy, and you never will be. Now that you've learned my true identity, you must die too. After I've killed you, I will live among humans, taking on your form. With these words, Madeleine assumed Mina's appearance and began to choke her, trying to kill her. Then Mina managed to gasp to Madeleine, didn't Professor ever tell you why you're able to come out during the daytime? Actually, you are a hybrid, half human and half fairy. That's why you can live between humans and fairies. I know what it's like to be alone in this world, but you are not the only halfling. There are many other halflings just like you, living among humans in some form or another. As soon as Madeleine heard this truth, her body suddenly began to shift into its true form. Suddenly, she grew wings. Then, leaving Mina here, she flew away. The scene then shifts to a few weeks later, where Mina is now living with her sister. She told her sister that maybe that fairy is still following her. Then Mina's sister tells her not to be afraid, that there's nothing like that. And at the story's end, we see a little girl who was standing below Mina's house at that time. This was none other than Madeleine, who now lives in their world in that form. And with that, this story comes to an end. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our channel and give the video a like.